Hey guys, so recently I decided that my life needed a little bit more depression in it, so I decided to give Blonde by Frank Ocean a first time listen. And I understand that it's one of the most critically acclaimed albums of the last decade and all, but seriously, this thing is an absolute masterpiece. So, in honor of its recent 6-year anniversary, I'm gonna rank every track on Blonde from worst to best. Now, a little disclaimer before we jump in. A lot of tracks on Blonde fall into a gray area between if they're a skit or an interlude, or a full-blown song. I mean, there's even a reprise on this album. So, to avoid confusion, I'm just gonna rank every track on the album, even if it's not really a song. Also, keep in mind that this list is entirely my opinion, and you are free to disagree. So, with that out of the way, let's get into the rankings.
She wanted me to accept her on Facebook.
Not much to say here. It's basically just a story about two people accusing each other of cheating through Facebook. It's kinda interesting, I guess, and the background instrumental is kinda catchy, but that's really about it.
Many college students have gone to college and gotten hooked on drugs.
Once again, not much to talk about, it's just another skit. This time it's a voicemail from Frank's friend's mother warning about the dangers of drugs. Really the only reason I like it slightly more than Facebook's story is because I think it makes more sense within the context of the album. Especially the irony that it comes right before Solo. Pretty Sweet is a track that I respect a lot more than I actually like. The whole song is extremely strange in general, with Frank singing very erratically over a super asymmetrical instrumental of strings and synths. There's really nothing I've heard quite like it. And while I don't personally love the sound, I do have to admit that it's extremely unique.
I wasn't devastated.
Now we reach the first of two tracks that I think would be phenomenal if they were longer. Close to You's got some cool vocals, and the instrumental's got a nice vibe to it, but at just under a minute and a half, it's way too short to fully get into, I think. Also, I had no clue about this before researching for the video, but the track is actually a cover of Stevie Wonder's cover of a Carpenter song, which I think is pretty cool.
These songs is therapy, mama. They paying me, mama. I should be paying them.
I absolutely love the first half of this track. It's amazing how Frank is able to ramble out sentences in a stream of consciousness style and still make the melody so catchy. And the production is great as usual. However, there's also the second half of the track, which is an interview by Frank's late brother Ryan. And while I do think it's got a lot of cool symbolic stuff in it, I do think it kills the replayability of the track. Either way, it's still a great closer to a fantastic album, and that final line that references a light year connecting its length of 9.4 trillion kilometers and the length of the song being 9.4 minutes never fails to amaze me.
It's a good guy, he hooked it up.
I genuinely don't think there's a single song that I would like to be extended more than this one. I don't know, just something about Frank singing over the soft instrumental is just so sad. And the short story about Frank going on a blind date told in the track is fittingly depressing for the sound of it. But once again, I just wish the track was a little bit longer so I could fully get into it before it ends.
Solo that I can admit, when I hear that another kid is shot by the popo, it ain't an event.
Man, I will never forget the first time I listened to this song. As soon as I saw that the track was labeled as a reprise of Solo, I got extremely curious since a reprise is so rare to see in a modern album. Then I heard Andre 3000 absolutely demolishing that beautiful piano instrumental. It's such a stylistic switch up from the rest of the album, but Andre's verse on it is so good that I really don't even care. Truly my only complaint is that I feel like Frank not having vocals on the song is a bit of a missed opportunity, since him and Andre worked so well on Pink Matter.
That's a pretty fucking fast year flew by.
Skyline 2 is just a really nice vibe. It's weird because I feel like this track sits in this awkward middle ground between an interlude and a fully developed song. Cause on one hand, it feels very meandering and scattered like some of the other interludes on the album, but on the other, it's definitely long enough to be considered a full song. No matter what you consider it to be though, the track's got a nice vibe, like I said, but it just really doesn't connect with me as much as the songs higher up do.
I'd rather live outside, rather go to jail.
So I think as we move into what I consider to be the fully fleshed out songs, we've officially reached the point where people will start to heavily disagree with my rankings. I mean, these last 9 tracks are all so excellent that I really wouldn't be surprised if Siegfried was a lot of people's favorite song on the album, and that's okay. Now as for why I think it's my least favorite of these final 9, I really don't know how to explain it other than saying it's the only one of the 9 that really didn't stick with me personally. Sonically speaking, everything's great, and I especially like Frank's last verse, but I don't know, for some reason it just doesn't hit me as emotionally as it does for other people, so I really can't have it any higher than this.
The sky is pink and white, if the ground is black and yellow.
Easily the biggest highlight of Pink and White has gotta be the instrumental. Seriously, massive props to Pharrell for creating such a beautiful backdrop for Frank's vocals. And speaking of vocals, I really like how Frank's voice is layered multiple times to create these gorgeous harmonies. Also, I know everyone's mentioned this before, but getting Beyonce on your track for nothing but backing vocals is just such a power move. My only real problem with the song is I feel like it's noticeably more pop than the other tracks on Blonde, and it makes it stand out when compared to the more minimalist aesthetic of the rest of the album. But a fantastic song nonetheless.
Watch the clouds float, white Ferrari.
Man, if people weren't mad already, this is gonna be the placement that makes them riot. I mean, White Ferrari is almost unanimously agreed to be the song that will make you cry, with many people even saying that it's Frank Ocean's best song. But it just wouldn't be a true video of mine without at least one controversial take, I guess. And also, don't get me wrong, White Ferrari is still a beautiful and heart-wrenching song. I love the somber acoustic guitar in the second half of the track. Frank's interpolation of the Beatles is pretty cool, and if that last minute doesn't make you at least a little bit emotional, then you really have no soul, my friend. But I think my thoughts on this track overall are similar to my thoughts on Siegfried, being that I just haven't fallen in love with it like I have the higher ranked tracks.
I thought that I was dreaming when you said you loved me.
Oh my god, I am so sad that Ivy is this low on my list, seriously. And that may sound confusing since I was the one who placed it here, but as I'll explain, I really only placed the track this low because of a small part in it that I really just don't like. But first let's talk about the parts of the track that I really do like. Firstly, the guitar in this song is nothing short of magical. Just something about the tone of it is so melancholic, and it fits perfectly with Frank's boyish vocals. The narrative of the song is also really cool, being all about a friendship that turns into an unexpected relationship that neither partner is truly prepared for, and so it inevitably fails. And as Frank is singing about his frustrations with the situation, he's overcome with emotion, and his vocals become more and more distorted, which is a really nice touch. But this does lead me to my biggest problem with Ivy, and that's that I just really don't like the last 45 seconds of the song. Something about Frank screaming mixed with the vocal effects on his voice just sounds really irritating to me. And I understand that it's supposed to be Frank getting angry about the situation, and like I said, I respect the concept, but the sound of it just annoys me, and usually makes me skip the last minute of the song. However, the excellent highs of Ivy heavily outweigh my one critique of it.
These bitches want Nike.
What a perfect intro track for Blonde, really. Now I do have to admit that this track was originally placed a lot lower on my list, mainly because I didn't really like the high-pitched vocals on the first half of the song, but they definitely have grown on me. And I really like how the drums slowly get more and more powerful as the track progresses, until they completely disappear along with the high-pitched vocals when the song transitions into its second half. And oh my god, that second half is so good! I know I just said that the first half of the song grew on me a lot, but I still think it doesn't hold a candle to the second half. Those strings in the background are absolutely stunning, Frank's sing-rapping verse is incredibly catchy, and the harmonies during the bridge near the end are just pure euphoria. Now overall, while it's definitely not my favorite track on the album, I can't deny that when I think of Blonde, Nike's is usually the first track that comes to mind.
Every night fucks every day up. Every day patches the night up. Oh God, you should match it, it's that KO.
To put it simply, Nights is a masterpiece. Interestingly enough, I enjoy it for a lot of the same reasons that I enjoy Nike's. It's separated into two distinct sections like Nike's, and also like Nike's, its first part just recently grew on me a lot. Now granted, it is a bit of a sonic switch up from the rest of the album, but I think it still fits its overall aesthetic. But obviously, I'm kinda just dancing around the biggest highlight of the song, and that's the beat switch. No exaggeration, the beat switch on Nights might be the greatest beat switch of all time. The contrast between the lively synth and guitar-based instrumental of the first half and the depressing piano chords of the second is just great. The transition between the beats itself is ridiculously smooth, And the fact that the switch is right at the 30-minute mark of the album, so it splits the album perfectly in half, is just brilliant. The second instrumental is also just way better than the first in my opinion. Like I said, the piano is haunting and the drums have a great rhythm. And when the bass kicks in, it's just mesmerizing. Like I said already, Nights is a masterpiece, and probably the best song for late night driving ever made, which does make sense given the title.
Wishing you Godspeed, glory.
To be honest, it's getting really hard to explain how good these songs are without saying the same things over and over again, but we are almost done, thankfully. Anyways, Godspeed is yet another gorgeous track that brings me to tears nearly every time I hear it. Firstly, the organ on this track might be my favorite instrument used on this whole album. I really can't even put into words how beautiful it sounds. Also, Frank gives one of his best ever vocal performances on this track. Like, the melodies that he hits on this are just insane. However, I think my biggest reason why the track is ranked so high for me is simply because, for some reason, it's the only song on Blonde that my friends listen to consistently. So, admittedly, I do have a big emotional attachment to it. And I really don't think Godspeed would be nearly as high without this attachment, but since I do have it, I do think it deserves to be placed third.
Smoking good, rolling solo. Solo.
So if you've watched my other album track rankings, or if you could just tell from this video, I tend to judge a song a lot more based on its pure sound, rather than focusing on the lyrics or messages all that much. But, ironically, my favorite part about Solo is the lyrical content. Basically, the term solo means two things within the song. Firstly, the obvious meaning of being alone and its ups and downs, but the term can also be interpreted as so low, referencing the emotional lows of life. This in turn connects to the constant references to weed and other drugs in the lyrics. Frank sings about not only wanting to get physically high, but also get emotionally high so he can escape this presumed low point in his life. It's a really good concept for a song, and as the song progresses, Frank uses the word solo in different contexts to show his change in perspective. All in all, this track is easily the best display of lyricism on the entire album, and I think understanding the lyrical content only makes the song even more emotionally powerful. And the best part is, the song still sounds amazing. Both of Frank's verses are just ridiculously catchy. The chorus is another fantastic display of vocal ability, and of course, I'm never gonna complain about an organ in a Frank Ocean song. Just a near perfect track in every aspect.
And you made me lose my self-control.
Like I said before, these last few tracks were especially difficult to rank, since they're essentially all at the same level of quality to me. Except for Self-Control. As soon as I finished my first listen to Blonde, I knew this track would be something special. And it has become not only my favorite song on Blonde, but also my favorite Frank Ocean song of all time. And a little disclaimer, I really don't have any particular reason as to why it's far and away my favorite, other than I just think it's basically flawless in every way. Genuinely, there is so much to praise about this song that I don't even know where to start. I mean, you've got Frank singing his heart out all over the track for one. His vocal runs on this are just immaculate, and his second verse never fails to make me tear up. Then you've got that great chorus performed by Austin Feinstein and later Young Lean. The way that the vocals are pitched up makes them hit so much harder than normal, and they contrast perfectly with Young Lean's much lower delivery of the chorus. There's also the outro, where the layering of Frank's voice mixed with the mellow synths in the background just makes me ascend to another plane of existence for a minute. And we haven't even talked about the instrumental in detail yet. The guitar used in the first half of this track is so simple, and yet complements Frank's singing perfectly. And there isn't a single other musical moment in any song that just absolutely breaks me, like when those strings come in during the bridge. And to top it all off, the lyrical content of the track is simply heartbreaking. The way Frank describes needing to fully distance himself from a failed relationship, only to lose his self-control and visit his lover because of how madly in love he still is, it's just really rough stuff to hear. I really can't give enough praise to this song. Genuinely, it's one of maybe 4 or 5 songs that I would rate as a 10 out of 10 at this moment in time, and one of the few that has actually made me ugly cry. Self-Control is just really on a different level for me. Alright, so that's my ranking of every track on Blonde. Like always, if you've enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to see whenever I post. And maybe check out some of my other album track ranking videos if you enjoyed this one. There will be a link in the description of a full playlist of them. Also, I know I said I was going to make another game review after my Failures in Minecraft video, but to be honest, I kinda lost motivation for it midway through writing the script, so I decided to make this instead. I will finish that review eventually though, so don't worry. Finally, before I go, I just wanted to say that I hope everyone watching this video is doing well and living happy lives. Without getting too personal, I'll admit that my mental health has not been the best as of late, and I figured that a video talking about an album as emotional as Blonde would be a good time to just wish everyone a happy and healthy future. So, yeah, I hope you guys are doing alright. Anyways, that's about it. Thanks for watching.